Welcome to Brain Bites, the podcast of big ideas in small bites. Each episode is a quick journey into fascinating topics, from science, society, life's mysteries, to intriguing insights you can take one bite at a time. Can you tell when someone's lying? In today's Bite, learn how to decode body language like a spy.
Ever get that feeling like, you're sending out signals you don't even realize, like you're walking a tightrope or something?
Yeah.
That's nonverbal communication for you. Always there, always running in the background. And today, we're diving deep into that world with a former FBI special agent, Joe Navarro.
And we're not talking about just, your average body language myths here. This isn't about, they touched their nose, they must be lying. No, Joe spent 25 years in the FBI catching spies with nonverbals. So buckle up, because we're about to decode the hidden language of spies straight from the master himself.
I got to admit, when I first heard about Joe's work, I thought, okay, crossed arms, fidgeting, I got this. But his insights, they go way deeper than that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. What really makes Joe's approach stand out is, he digs into the limbic system, that ancient part of our brain, the one all about emotions and survival instincts. And those limbic responses, they're instant, they're raw, and you just can't fake them. Joe would say it's like a physiological truth serum almost.
So it's not just about seeing a gesture. It's about the why behind it, the emotional trigger that sets it off.
Exactly. Let's take the classic crossed arms, right? Everyone says it means someone's closed off. But Joe's research, it shows it's not that simple. A lot of times it's a limbic response, they're uncomfortable, they need to self-soothe, something like that. Think about it. Have you ever been in a crowded elevator or maybe a tense meeting and you catch yourself crossing your arms?
All the time, especially if I feel like everyone else is in control and I'm just going to kind of long for the ride. My brain goes, all right, time to armor up.
Exactly. It's that limbic system kicking in, trying to create a sense of security. And that's what's so fascinating about Joe's work. He helps us understand that these behaviors, they're not random. They're hardwired responses to our environment, our emotional state.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you go from someone crossing their arms to actually using that to, catch a spy? Seems like a big jump.
It is. And this is where one of his most compelling cases comes in. He was investigating a suspected mole, someone who had really seemingly blended into American life. And during surveillance, they catch this individual leaving a flower shop.
Ordinary, right? Totally. Nothing about a flower shop screams spy thriller. If anything, it's almost too normal.
Exactly. But here's the kicker. Here's the aha moment. Joe noticed the suspect was holding the flowers, get this, facing down.
Now think about it. In America, we hold flowers blooms up, right? But in Eastern Europe, where they suspected this guy was really from, carrying flowers facing down, that's the norm.
So it was a cultural tell, like a subconscious slip-up that revealed his background. That's incredible.
It really is, and it highlights, a crucial point about Joe's whole approach. Context is everything. That tiny detail, how he's holding those flowers, it meant nothing on its own, but with the cultural context, with his background, it said everything.
That's amazing. So Joe sees this tiny detail, but then what? Did he just confront the guy? All right, we got you, you're a spy.
Not quite. He used what he called a presumptive approach, something he used a lot. Instead of a direct accusation, he sits down with the suspect and says, you want to know how we know? And the guy's, completely baffled. So Joe just says, the flowers. And
that subtle but powerful reveal, based on the suspect's own unconscious behavior, it led to a confession.
Wow. It's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
But it also just shows how much we communicate without realizing it. Like our bodies are constantly betraying our true thoughts and feelings, whether you like it or not.
Exactly. And this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to nonverbals. Joe had this whole method for dissecting a person's entire demeanor from head to toe, looking for these little giveaways.
Okay, I am definitely intrigued. So how does he actually read someone? Where does he even begin?
He'd start with something as simple as hair. Believe it or not, how someone styles their hair or doesn't, it can tell you about their state of mind, their stress levels, even personality traits.
Now that you mention it, I always feel more, put together after a haircut.
Yeah.
More confident. So I guess it makes sense that our hair, or lack of it, sends a message too.
Absolutely. And from the hair, he'd move to the forehead. You'd be surprised how much tension, how much life experience gets etched into those lines.
So we're talking Worry lines, frown lines,
Yeah.
all the stuff that makes us look distinguished, right?
Exactly. But it's not just wrinkles. The forehead, especially that spot between the eyebrows, the glabella that's super expressive, even a little furrow, Joe called it the bunny nose. That can be a sign of discomfort or disagreement.
Oh, wow. I can totally picture that. I'm even doing it now. It's amazing how much we communicate without realizing it. What else did he look for?
Well, the eyes, of course, they're the window to the soul, right? Joe, he'd focus on signs of redness, big indicator of fatigue or stress.
Yeah, I know I've got those telltale red eyes after a late night. What about the rest of the face?
The lips, they can be very telling. Compressed lips, or if they seem to disappear almost, that often means distress or a heavy heart. Moving down, cheeks and the jawline, they're notorious for holding tension. And ever notice someone subtly rubbing their tongue inside their cheek?
I do that all the time, usually when I'm trying to bite back a sarcastic comment.
Well, there you go. Joe called it a subconscious way of managing perception, almost like they're trying to keep a straight face, but there's all this turmoil going on inside.
It's like our bodies have their own silent language going on, and we're just starting to understand the words.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the neck, shoulders, hands, and feet yet.
Wait, there's more?
Oh, much more. The human body, it's like a symphony of nonverbal cues. And Joe, he had this knack, like he was conducting this orchestra of information.
This is fascinating. We'll have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into Joe Navarro's world, exploring those other telltale signs and what they reveal about us. Stay with us. All right, so before we were diving into Joe Navarro's world, all about nonverbal intelligence, and honestly, my mind is blown. We're talking about like deciphering the secret language of the body, all those little cues that give us away, even if we don't mean for them to, and we haven't even gotten to the neck, shoulders, hands, and feet yet.
You're right, we've got a lot more to uncover. Like a tilted head, for example. That can be a sign of relaxation, openness, Picture someone listening intently. Their head kind of cocked to the side a little. Now compare that to when someone suddenly straightens their neck, maybe even pulls their head back a bit. Joe saw that a lot, and usually it meant something was up, Yeah. Like they were uncomfortable, they disagreed with what was being said.
It's wild how even the tiniest movements can speak so loudly. What about shoulders? I swear I hunch mine up around my ears whenever I'm stressed.
You and everyone else. The shoulders are a dead giveaway for your emotional state. Hunched shoulders, 9 times out of 10. That's stress, anxiety, the need to protect yourself, like you're trying to disappear or something. Relaxed shoulders, though, shoulders pulled back, that shows confidence, being at ease.
Okay, I'm going to be watching my posture from now on, that's for sure.
No, what about hands? They're usually pretty busy, right?
So busy and so revealing. Take interlaced fingers, for instance. Now, if someone's fingers are loosely interlaced, especially if their posture's relaxed, that might just be how they're comfortable sitting. But if you see those fingers intertwined tightly, knuckles starting to turn white, that's different. That often means discomfort, anxiety, even anger bubbling under the surface. It's that limbic system again, reacting to a threat, real or perceived.
So our hands are betraying us even when we try to keep them still. What about other hand gestures? I've heard that like steepling your fingers can be a sign of confidence. You got it. Steepling, where the fingertips touch, kind of forming a church steeple shape. It can definitely show confidence, especially with direct eye contact and a steady voice. It's a way to project authority, really emphasize what you're saying. But, and Joe would always say this, context is key. You can't just look at one gesture in isolation. Steepling could also mean someone's thinking hard, contemplating. Depends on the situation and the other cues they're giving off.
Good point. It's like trying to understand one word without knowing the rest of the sentence.
Exactly. And speaking of expressive hands, let's not forget the classic arms akimbo stance. Hands on the hips, elbows out.
Oh yeah, like a power pose, right?
It can be. Joe found that with men especially, arms akimbo can be about asserting dominance, taking up more space. It's that nonverbal way of saying, I'm in charge here. But it can also signal frustration, impatience, or even just, needing a good stretch. Again, context is everything.
This is so cool. It's like our bodies are speaking this whole other language, and we're finally starting to crack the code. What about legs and feet? I imagine they've got their own stories to tell.
They absolutely do. Legs and feet are often overlooked, but they're super telling, especially if you're trying to figure out if someone's uncomfortable or wants to make a quick exit.
Really, even if they're trying to seem like totally calm and collected on the surface.
Especially then. Remember, that limbic system, it reacts instinctively, and our legs and feet, they're often the first responders. For example, ever catch someone shifting their weight from one foot to the other like they're about to bolt out of there?
Oh, all the time. Especially if there's an awkward silence or I don't know, feel like I need an escape route just in case.
Exactly. Classic limbic response. They're uncomfortable, they want to create distance. Or if you see someone's feet pointing towards the exit, even if they're still talking to you, could be their subconscious saying, time to go.
It's like our bodies have their own internal compass, and sometimes their feet are pointing the way out.
Precisely. And that's what makes nonverbal so fascinating. It's the language of our subconscious, revealing what we really think and feel, even if we try to hide it.
This has been eye-opening. From furrowed brows to fidgety feet, it's clear Joe Navarro had a real gift for understanding the silent language of the body. But this is just the beginning. When we come back, we'll talk about how we can actually use his insights in our own lives, how we can become more aware of the messages we're sending, intentionally or not. Don't go anywhere. We're back, and man, my brain is doing backflips with all these nonverbal cues. It's been quite a trip with Joe Navarro, really diving into the silent language of the body.
It's a wild world, isn't it? And we've only just dipped our toes in, really, with all that Joe uncovered in his work.
I thought I was pretty good at reading people, but this is a whole other level. But seriously, knowing all this, how do we actually use it? It's not like we're all going to go undercover for the FBI.
Right. You don't need to be a spy catcher to benefit from understanding nonverbals. I don't know, something as simple as a handshake. Joe, he was big on handshakes. He saw them as this powerful ritual, that first physical contact you make with someone, a limbic handshake, you'd call it, because it triggers all these chemical reactions in the brain.
It's true. Like we were saying before, a good handshake can make or break a first impression. But is there really more to it than just like a firm grip?
Oh, absolutely. Joe always said warmth, connection, that's key in a handshake. It's not about trying to crush the other person's hand. It's about confidence, being approachable. A good handshake, yeah, it's firm, but it's also brief. There's good eye contact, a genuine smile. It's about building that rapport right off the bat.
It really is amazing how much gets communicated in those first few seconds, and we're not even thinking about it half the time.
Exactly. And it just goes to show we are all transmitters, every single one of us, constantly sending out signals, whether we realize it or not. How we walk, stand, our facial expressions, it all tells a story.
Okay, so if we're all broadcasting 24/7, how do we become more aware of what we're putting out there? I'd hate to think I'm accidentally giving off stay away vibes just because I'm having a bad day.
Right. Nobody wants that. Joe, he always said self-awareness is key. Pay attention to your own body language. How do you stand? What do you do with your hands when you're talking? How does your body react in different situations? Once you've got a handle on your own nonverbal habits, then you can start to make adjustments if you want to.
That makes sense. Be mindful, basically, both of ourselves and the people we're interacting with.
Exactly. It's about developing what Joe called nonverbal intelligence, that ability to read and understand those subtle cues that are always flying back and forth between us. And the more we understand that language, the better we can communicate, build relationships, really navigate the whole human experience,
This deep dive into Joe Navarro's work has been absolutely fascinating. It's amazing to think how much we can learn about ourselves and others just by paying attention to those silent signals, those whispers that are always there beneath the surface.
It's a hidden language waiting to be understood. And as Joe would say, the body doesn't lie.
Well said. A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this journey into the world of nonverbal communication. And to our listeners, keep those eyes peeled, stay curious, and remember, the next time you're watching a conversation unfold, you might just be witnessing a masterclass in nonverbal intelligence right before your very eyes. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.